Hi there, and welcome back to another episode of the Marvel New Universe podcast. I'm Steven,
And Andy.
and today we'll be going over Kickers Inc. and Mark Hazzard Merc, number ones of each of those. And I'll kick it off.
Nice.
That was Andy's joke.
Oh, I didn't write that joke for you.
We got a team behind me now. Kick it off with Kickers Inc. number one, which was on the stands July 29th, 1986, cover dated November 1986. And there's kind of two titles for this because on the cover it says Birth of a Hero, but on the inside it says This Legend Born. Those are pretty good, I guess. It could go either way.
Ideas, they wanted to use both.
Someone got yelled at after that came out. I thought you were going to correct this. No, I thought you were going to. So it is by Tom DeFalco, writer, Ron Frenz, penciler, Sal Buscema, inker, and edited by Michael Higgins. And was it created by, yes, Tom DeFalco and Ron Frenz. So DeFalco, as we mentioned, is sort of the more did Spitfire and the Troubleshooters already that we covered. So, and Frenz is a guy who's been at Marvel a long time at this point. He's a poor man's Jack Kirby. Let's just call it what it is. But the getting right into the issue, we have a nice splash page with the title, as I mentioned, This Legend Born, and the kickers in these sort of jumpsuit uniforms running towards you, which is a little more actiony than the cover, which is full of Kirby crackle, they call it, that sort of ink spotting to show like energy is being released from the main character. He looks like he's being electrocuted, and all the other kickers are shocked and dismayed. So jumping into the story on page 2, we have a football game going on. Time is running out for the New York Smashers.
Nice.
Not the Kickers, as I originally thought in my memory.
They're
the Smashers.
Nobody likes the Kickers.
The Kickers were the superhero team, not the football team. The Smashers are down 4 points in the 14 seconds to go, playing against the Visitors.
What's called
Visitors.
Wildcats.
I mean, I was a little disappointed they didn't start making up other team names right away. Like each, city would have its own, team that's specific to the Marvel New Universe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Where's the Steelers, right?
Yeah, they hit that soon enough. So let's see. The quarterback of the New York Smashers is Jack Magnaconte, and he gets knocked. Let's see. No, he throws a pass to Dasher Corbin. Dasher is tackled. They then run a play where Jack is blitzed and he fumbles to stop the clock. Now they've only got a couple seconds left, and everyone's expecting a pass, so we run. That's the kind of craziness you can come to expect from the Smashers.
It's a chess game.
It's the mental game. That's really where the game is won.
Yeah.
So he does a handoff to Suicide, and Suicide Smythe seems to jump over several people and make it into the end zone for a touchdown. Yay, the Smashers won. So in the cut to the locker room where there's a bit of hijinks going on. The guys on the team are kind of snapping the towel with each other. Let's see, there's what is this?
Yeah, it starts to introduce their personalities a bit.
Yeah, a little easier than they do their names. Let's see. Dasher is the dashing guy. Let's try to use that as a mnemonic.
Yeah.
He's kind of a Billy D. Williams looking guy, dresses nicely, seems to use perfume or something. So he throws some soap to trip up Suicide, who's kind of a show off, who's grandstanding with some gymnastics or something. Suicide Smythe. And then the peacemaker, or at least the voice of authority, is a guy named Brick Wall. So Brick talks to Jack Magniconte again, and he does a thing where he sort of has a Southern accent for a second, and then they're discussing some backstory. And suddenly Brick starts talking like he has an MBA. And Brick, it's funny how you lose your corny down-home accent whenever you start discussing financial matters. And then Beaufort Kimball Wool, class of 82, at your service.
At your service. And I think even in one of the panels, he's holding like a Wall Street Journal, like right after the game, he needs to see.
He needs to see it. Yeah, it's not he's going like a racing form that he's going gambling. That's another guy. So they go outside and they are basically all picked up by groupies.
Yeah, looks like it.
And a couple of them are complaining that the quarterback took off. And they say, oh, that's his wife. Okay. So Jack and Darlene Magniconte get a car and are driving around and are talking about Jack's brother, Steve, older brother who took care of him. He was gambling, used to have a gambling problem. Jack says it was just a way for him to keep active in sports after he ruined his knee. You're just rationalizing. Anyway.
Gambling in science lab. That's a great way to.
So they go to his science lab. He owns a company that does sports nutrition and
yeah,
training. Sports Power Plus. Plus is a little hard to see on that.
Yeah, the plus is probably like bathroom and toiletry goods.
So they walk into the lab where Steve's there. Steve is in a lab coat, so you can tell he's a scientist, and he's also still in with the what do you want to call
it? You like his crutch?
His crutch, yeah, like he just got injured 5 minutes ago. They say he got injured in college or something, and usually those things just like slow you down so much that you can't play professional sports. They're not like I'm completely lame and unable to walk now.
Right. This may be more of a Joe Theismann knee flying around kind of injury, maybe.
But it's visual storytelling. I don't know. So Steve shows them into his main laboratory where everyone looks at a thing that's kind of off screen. And what is it? I don't know what to call it. Maybe the intensifier? He seems a little tentative with it.
Yes.
And what's it do? Well, I hope it can artificially stimulate increase in muscle mass. So he's talking about something that could, over the long term, slowly, weeks of exposure to this thing,
right,
give you a slight edge. So that's the plan. And Jack is intrigued, and Darlene's a little off put by it. And he tells them, come back tomorrow and we'll try it if you want to. Darlene and Jack go off to Central Park. I guess they're, as you will if you live around New York, anywhere, I guess. And stroll around talking about it. And, is it more dangerous than steroids? Is it, but Jack's determined. He's like, I'll do anything for an edge like that.
Yeah, a lot of close-ups on his very serious looking eyes.
Yeah, that like these couple of pages, that's a very Kirby face. You know what I mean? You'd see like Reed Richards looking at the negative zone with that kind of expression all the time. And at this point, we get our first visual of the actual white event. And it looks a lot like the Crisis on Infinite Earths, and
Yeah.
possibly New York being blown up by a nuke in Watchmen. Everything's just sort of fading to white as they walk down the street. And it's a total whiteout. And see, exposed to a bizarre manifestation as the entire continent and the rest of the world is suddenly blanketed by a strange, dazzling light. So Jack seems to like collapse or feel dizzy. His wife's worried about him, but they don't really think anything of it. The world seems to be going on as normal. And so they go home, and the next morning they're back at this laboratory. Jack's all hooked up to the machine and ready to be very slightly activated.
Yes.
Well, Steve, as the intensifier hums into life, my body feels so strange. Everything's starting to spin. So that we get that basically the cover image, except none of the other people are around, where the Kirby crackle is everywhere. It's cosmic energy, as you would see in a regular Marvel comic from a few years before this. His wife and brother are very worried. Something's wrong. Turn off the machine. I don't understand. This isn't what should have happened. It's just supposed to buzz.
I like that part because it makes me think he was just scamming him the whole time.
It kind of leaves that in the air that like, yeah, that was, I meant to do that. So his hair has turned white and his physique is maybe larger than it was before. It's a little hard to tell. He was a pretty in shape guy,
so. Like swollen up, but it is hard to tell.
Yeah, it's not like going from skinny, Steve Rogers to Captain America in 2 minutes, but so then they just cut to the next scene. Next morning in Central Park, he's out for a jog, and some kids in a car like splash him, and he chases them in the car going 40 miles an hour, they said. Tears off a bumper, and suddenly, hey, how'd I do that? They get back to the lab, and Steve isn't really much help. I can't even begin to explain what happened to you. Instead of slowly increasing.
Scientist.
Look, Jack, I need some funding. It may take at least 6 months, maybe a year, before we'll get any answers about what happened. So let's hope my R01 gets funded. So my machine has apparently multiplied your strength and speed overnight. I don't know why. Don't sweat it, bro. Yeah, okay. Well, everyone's in good mood. We see the first of Steve lifting, or Jack lifting boxes. He lifts a lot of boxes when he's talking to people now. Anyway, probably larger than him, but So Jack takes off, and Steve's still wondering what happened. Then he gets a phone call. How's it going, Steve Areno? Very jokey way to call someone who turns out to be your loan shark.
Yeah.
The gambling dude is telling him he owes him a bunch of money, and gambling guy, Mr. Sloan, tells his assistant that he's got by getting Steve hooked, he'll get the quarterback hooked too, so he'll be able to control the game at some point. We go back to Jack. He's pretty happy. His wife's a little concerned, and then right away the next Sunday, on not even practice, a full game, I guess, Jack throws past a dasher and hits him so hard that it breaks his ribs. Whoops. It never even occurred to me something like that could happen.
No. Well, he's a football player. He's not that bright. Nobody bets an eye though. Like, Dasher's happy. He's like,
Yeah, everyone, no one's, yeah,
good time
like
to get
crazy.
use, and nobody really wonders how it's even possible for someone to throw that hard.
It's let's see. He says they win the game. Oh, and he's just gonna be out for maybe a week or two. So um he's trying to charm the nurses, and the other guys try muffling him with some pillows. It's a bit like that Seinfeld episode, I guess.
Yes.
The so the secondary characters on the team are all, I think, African American, but they're all slightly different skin tones in the coloring that we get here. There's kind of a lighter, darker, and a gray or purple. I don't know. Coloring really, wasn't great for uh, most human skin tones back then. So
No, definitely some mistakes in there too.
So after we get out, there's more hijinks outside. Rick notices that Jack has his mind on something, but they don't talk about it. Over at Sports Power Plus, Steve is trying to make other people use the intensifier and doesn't really seem to do anything for them. So then we cut to another game. Regular season's ending. Smashers finish first in their division. Coasting past Miami, they are forced to battle Pittsburgh for the conference championship. And here's a thing where I got to say they really miss a point of having Ken Connell in the stands,
Right.
for having like the Pittsburgh, Pirate Steelers or something, and him wearing a shirt for that or something, some way to tie things together. Because in early Marvel universe, that was part of the thing. Like the Fantastic Four would fly over a street, and you'd see Peter Parker like moping about down in the crowd, like, oh, I got to go do this, and then stop the Dr. Octopus. And anyway, those little things where you tie things together are always neat. So anyway, the Smashers win over Pittsburgh, jerks, and are headed to the Super Bowl. And everyone's pretty psyched except for Jack. And they start, what's with him? I don't know, man. He seemed distracted. This was a championship game, high point of his career. The guy sleepwalked through it like he was bored out of his mind.
Yeah.
A lot of irony there. So Mr. Sloan is still threatening Steve. Then the next time Jack is working out with Steve, he tries to sort of bring it up. He's like, "Oh, I hear you're favored to win by quite a margin. Why are you interested in the point spread? Are you gambling again?" Jack's all over it. No, of course not, says Steve. So then Jack wants to know if he can reverse the intensifier. He starts to feel that it's too much, that it's basically cheating. It's no fun to be playing something if he's 10 times stronger than everyone else. He has this conversation with Darlene that night. Everything's turning sour. Everything. He knows there's something wrong with Steve. He's worried about the Smashers. And he's upset. Steve's stupid machine has ruined the sport for me.
Oh.
Ouch. And there's this nice sort of darkness that's engulfing him as he talks to her. So a couple weeks later, they have the Super Bowl in New Orleans. And Jack says to himself, I can't worry about that. I got to just get out there and play the best. And for the next 60 minutes, the sporting world is treated to a stunning spectacle. Scoring almost at will, the Smashers totally dominate their opponents, crushing them by a humiliating score of 65-17. Oh my God, I'm sorry, I missed a page back here. It was one of my favorite pages too.
What was the Super Bowl commercial? Or
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, back to page 13. So after their first triumph, where after the intensifier, where Jack is shown that he's super strong. They sort of do a nice sports montage of that whole season. So they go through, I don't know how many more games that season, and are just, oh, he's the best. The team is the top. Everything's great. And there's a nice splash montage of public interest in the team, at which point they start doing music videos, charitable events, product endorsements, television commercials. And the music videos, it was really gives the game away a bit from the Super Bowl shuffle.
Yeah, the Super Bowl shuffle.
85 Chicago Bears. So yeah, I'm sorry. That was a key moment in their development. So it did not last long. Getting back to the actual Super Bowl, this isn't fair. It's not a game. It's a massacre. So Jack goes back to Steve and in New York, and walks in just in time to see Steve get shot. The loan shark is there. Maybe they didn't mean to shoot him. He grabbed my gun. It wasn't my fault. Jack, of course, throws them around like they're, paper, and could have killed them, but he gets to Steve just in time to watch him die in his hands. So 3 weeks later, Jack is telling the rest of the team the whole story, and then they all try the intensifier. I don't think it really seems to do much for any of them.
And it's not clear whether or not it does. Their hair
Although
doesn't.
he said, it would be over weeks or months anyway. So, but he says, I realize now that I blew it. Instead of using my gift for something special, I wasted it on scoring touchdowns. I'm a guy who had it all: money, fame, power. I owe something to those who don't. So the others are like, you mean some charity work? Not quite suicide. We are who we are. Anything to get involved in has to be fun and exciting. So they decided
boring helping poor people.
But it has to be a glamorous poor person.
Right.
And there has to be some excitement involved.
Right.
Danger. I don't know. So they've taken over the Sports Plus headquarters, turned it into headquarters for a new foundation that will be a charity organization helping people who have nowhere else to go. So it's Jack, his wife, Darlene, and Dasher, Suicide, and Brick Wall. And let's see, what does he say? We'll hire a staff to attend to the mundane matters. We'll only get involved if the case is real interesting. And let's see. We close with trying to come up with a name. We intend to kick some serious butt. Well, you dumb kickers are going to need a lot more than the new name if you break my lamp. Hey, that's not bad. They definitely do sound like us. It just needs a little modification to Kickers Inc.
Yeah.
Next month. There's a robot in my rose garden. Be here.
Maybe the presidential rose garden?
So what was Kickers Inc.? Kickers Inc. was, yes, the 85 Chicago Bears. The USFL was a year or two before that.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So it was a nice attempt at an overlap with this celebrity culture, sports culture, and superheroism. The previous book that it reminded me of, as I said, it's a very Kirby style all the way through. And the thing I think that it was closest to was Challengers of the Unknown, because they're sort of regular looking guys in the sort of jumpsuits who decided to, well, it's like Final Destination or something, like we we're unlikely to survive this. So now that we have a new lease on life, let's go do some good with our time or something.
Right.
Um,
I saw it a little bit like a, well, I mean, when you're thinking of it in the 80s, it's like, what if John Elway got turned into Captain America kind of thing?
that's good.
Definitely
Good.
Captain America vibes. But I think the big difference being, he's in the middle of a football career, and then, it is absolutely cheating, right? It's like turn yourself into a super soldier, performance enhancement kind of thing, and he still keeps playing. He plays all the games and wins the Super Bowl. But so then he's kind of got to moralize it, like he's doing it for his team, and he feels bad about it. It's a little bit of it's not quite
Yeah.
as sparkling as going to fight a just war kind of thing. But
Yeah, he in no way. I mean, he feels bad about it as soon as he hurts the other guy, but although it starts to gnaw on him, it's like, yeah, it is pretty obviously like a huge advantage. And I mean, the guy is in pretty great shape to begin with. Obviously, he's a professional athlete, so he's could you have a group of guys with really no superpowers, but they're all professional athletes with a lot of money and just desire to like goof around and help random people?
footballs at criminals.
That's exactly what we need to have happen. Yeah, the overall, Tom DeFalco, as I said before, is the editor of the Star line of comics, which is the children's line. So he's sort of, I would say, writing down a bit to a lower age level of reader than most of the other line. It's not like as serious as several of the other New Universe books where this is more like, what would be on at 7 p.m. In prime time versus like 9 or 10 p.m. I mean, it's like just goofy fun. I don't know. I think each of them does have code names, which I didn't maybe give. Darlene becomes Doll.
Yeah, it was interesting that you kind of expect the team, but maybe not his wife to join the super team. Like just strap them all to the machine. The three players and his team buddies, but also his wife.
I mean,
Yeah,
she seems to be in good shape. Possibly she's also an athlete.
Yeah.
We didn't really get much on the background of them, but that's like you say, each of the other players has a personality, and her personality is being his wife.
Yeah. I like when they turn Sports Power Plus into their home base. There's a couple panels or like looking at blueprints and stuff, but it basically looks like they move in a bunch of couches. And then she's getting abuse and complaining that they're knocking over the lamp. So got some.
Yeah, she's. I mean, attractive. They're all good shape. I think like I say, the art is serviceable, but it doesn't really go beyond Kirby light.
Yeah, a lot of blank backgrounds.
Yeah, a lot of lifting boxes, like I said. Let me show you how strong I am, and then there's a like extreme.
Maybe we can keep a tally of how many boxes get lifted.
Oh yeah, I'll go back to that.
Yeah.
And I don't know, a good melodrama with the brother and the dark side of sports, I guess.
Once again.
So I mean,
yeah.
I was thinking before this was like one of these goofy teams that Kirby would do, like the Green Team or something, the Newsboy Legion, where it's really just, why would these people do this? How could they do that? But it's also like maybe 20 years past the point where you could realistically have a football celebrity who isn't like, so so famous or, so rich as they became. By the 80s, they were definitely making enough and were not, just going to like have a superhero club with their buddies from work,
Right.
it strains the credibility. I don't know.
Yeah, there's definitely an A team kind of vibe too, but that's kind of like to be determined too, because the team forms at the end, and we also get what most new universe issue ones have had is like somebody dying too. So like somebody's father or brother, or a lot of deaths.
Yeah, the inciting incident wasn't so much the white event as like someone always has to die, and then you're like, I will take on his mantle and keep going. So,
They didn't really care too much that his brother died. He's like, hey, now I can use this place as my base. Yeah.
So I don't know. It's nice to see the white event finally. We've heard so much about it. So actually, by the time we see it here, I looked through some other information, and the white event was supposed to have occurred that July, and 1980, July 22, maybe
Okay.
1986. So when they say there's the white event in this book, as we were talking before, there's part of the reality of the new universe is having a realistic timeline and things aging and moving in real time. So if the white event happens in July, and we've already now gone into, I guess, January,
Yeah.
the Super Bowl. So you're going to be a little out of sync with several of the other titles, I think, for a while there. But
yeah. But Cyforce happens presumably a little bit later than the white event,
so maybe
out, and then I
fall.
Starbrand is the same way. So they may have still been trying to kind of coordinate the beginning of it. It's hard to tell.
It's hard to tell, but I don't know. It's very light. Going through it, it's not bad. It's just like I say, I before I had thought of like the new universe as several titles with, better or worse ones, but now it looks more like this would be like the G-rated one, and some of the others would like the PG to PG-13, you know what I mean? So is this for like 12-year-olds or 16-year-olds? I don't know. So this is definitely, I would say, the youngest skewing storyline in the new universe.
Right. And I think the other one we're doing today is probably the oldest skewing.
The most adult. Yeah.
Clearly.
So I know when I say adult, I always think, no, it's not that adult, but
no.
But yeah, this is the biggest probably range of target ages.
So good that we're doing them together.
Perfect.
All right.
Released on the stand at the same time.
That's true.
Is that good marketing, Marvel? I don't know.
Well, they could be on different parts of the spinning rack.
So do you have a rating for this one?
I would give it a solid C, and I'm hoping that it gets interesting.
I was continuing to try to be generous, so I would give it a B-.
All right.
I didn't want to be start off as because I think it will get worse.
Come on, Terror in the Rose Garden. That's got to be interesting.
That sounds like fun. Yeah, I probably was looking forward to it at the time. Yeah, it sounds good.
See what happens. You never know.
Never know.
All right, so shall we move on to Mark Hazzard, Merc?
Take it away, Andy.
All right, so yeah, this is a big tonal shift, right? Even down to the cover. Mark Hazzard is written in flames, and the word Merc is kind of scorched. So it's got a nice little title, and we have what is clearly Mark Hazzard on the cover holding an Uzi and smoking and sweating and shooting, and there's bullets flying, and everything's kind of black and red and nasty looking. So definitely this is the war comic. It's a little
100%.
different than Kickers Inc. So this book unfortunately only has one title, Bad for Business. So we open in kind of a nice cliche scene, Gramercy Park, a nice place to live in Manhattan. And we've got a little boy stealing from one of those outdoor fruit stands where you just gotta assume you're getting ready for the owner to chase him and shake his fist and say, "Ah, you dang kids." But he doesn't get too far. So the kid grabs an apple, turns, thumps into our hero, Mark Hazzard, or anti-hero maybe, we'll see, in a black and white tracksuit and kind of like a cool hat. Also, maybe a match or a cigarette in his mouth. It's hard to tell. It just thumps into him, looks up, and Merc doesn't say anything to the kid. The kid just gets the impression that he means business, puts the apple back and runs off. And hey, mister, thanks for stopping that kid. Yeah. And then as he walks away, we get two girls who are kind of ogling Mark Hazzard and all of his grizzled good looks. And they're assuming he's probably married, because all the good ones are. But yeah,
The girls are also mentioning that there's some political unrest in the South Pacific.
That's right. So that's probably not important to the story, though, right?
Chances of that coming back to haunt us, infinitesimal.
No, it's a good catch. So, they clue in that he overheard that, but he's walking back to his apartment, opens the door, and you get a peek into the window of his life here. He's not one to talk a ton, so they kind of narrate his apartment, who has, it's a mess. There's stuff around, booze bottles, hats, guns all over the place, guns in a case, guns on a rack. Not just like a goon, though. They're setting him up, the perusal of his hundreds of volumes on war, military history, and tactical strategy, right? So the good one is, in fact, one of the very best. It's just some of the things he does are not very good, right? So I always love those little things, but he's got all sorts of war memorabilia. So they're setting him up to be, ultimate smart combat.
An extreme right winger of something.
Possibly.
Yeah, he's definitely got war memorabilia from. It's a little vague, but a lot of guns, definitely.
Yeah, and
on the walls.
So Mark is grizzled, I think, was like the best word for it, right? So he's always kind of got a scowl. He's got kind of short blonde hair, two scars, like one going kind of vertically from his lip and one sort of vertically across one of his eyes, kind of in the corner, so enough to look tough, not enough to need an eye patch.
He's lucky with that eye thing. That is really like goes right over his left eye. So
yeah, that was a close call. So as the story continues, he's hanging out in his apartment, he hits his answering machine, looking for a specific call. So he gets a call from his son, who wants to have him at least wish him well. It's an interesting interaction where it sounds like the son is not expecting dad to show up, but he's just hoping for him to be thinking of him. A call from his wife, a call from some woman who he made a date with and left stranded. And then the call that he wants is the call about the next job. So the gig is on.
that's the one.
That's the one. Right. So we waste no time. In the next panel, he's jumping out of a helicopter, and then we get to our title screen, I guess. So I failed to introduce our writers in this case, but here they are on the page. So let's do it. You get Peter David with the story. Pretty accomplished Marvel writer, long runs on Incredible Hulk and X Factor, and he'll be writing the first 4 issues of Merc.
So he went on to a long established career, and he did actually 2 or 3. I think he stayed on Justice to the end, and maybe something.
a lot of books to his name. That's for sure.
Yeah,
And then,
sure.
whoa, I thought it was interesting. Gray Morrow, the artist, is credited as co-creator for Man Thing and El Diablo of the Silver Age, perhaps. Right.
I guess I didn't quite remember all his history, but he definitely, it's an interesting entry in Wikipedia. And I thought he was more oriented towards Westerns and war comics. I think he
Yeah.
also did horror, but all of those sort of require a more realistic style. And I think, yeah, it looks great here.
Yeah, I was impressed by the art. There's a lot of good detail, a lot of kind of like dark shading, but not just, pointlessly black. The faces are good. All the characters look good. Definitely a lot of little detail in it. So did a nice job. And it seems like he's the artist for most of Merc, or at least, the majority of it. All right. So we're jumping out of a helicopter. We get introduced to his friend in mercenarydom. That's the right word, right? Maul, just MAL, that's all we get. And Maul is into explosives. But yeah, so now they're in fact invading that Southeast Asian island nation that with trouble with the rebels. And
they call it South Pacific again, which is kind of I mean,
kind of a cop out.
It's like a World War II location. I don't know.
Yeah, just a generic, not a South American, but a South Pacific, I guess. I don't know. Something with some bad guys in it.
Well, we'll see in a second. The president here, I think, is a real riff on Ferdinand and Imelda Marcos.
Oh.
So that puts them in the Philippines. So that I would say, in terms of looks, there's something going on there, and they had been overthrown just a year or two before that, so it was kind of recent news.
Okay, yeah, I didn't catch that. So good context. Yeah, so they're talking about a ring, and we get the idea. So it's Merc's job to assassinate the president, or basically capture or assassinate the president from the rebels. And so he basically does the simplistic job of just stepping into the room and surprising them. He's got interesting techniques.
I thought there would be more lead up to that, but okay.
No, really, it's just, one page helicopter, next page, he's outside, inside, right? He's right there, not very far into the comic. So the president gives the code, "Let's talk, my friend," which is apparently code to his wife, consort, woman, to pull a gun and try and kill Merc, but it doesn't work. So she gets shot. We get clues that the president's daughter is nearby, starting to hear the commotion. Our president's is gonna not go without a fight, so of course he throws his dead wife at Merc and tries to grab a sword. It didn't work either. So he grabs this long knife, chucks it at Mark Hazzard. Mark catches it out of the air and basically wings it back at him, piercing through the president, through the wall, and right in the face of the poor guy's daughter. So here's a nice little scene. The president didn't last too long, so we have our death in the New Universe sense. It says, "Forget it. Like I said before, dead's easier."
Yeah, grabbing the guy's knife out of the air and throwing it back at him is a good move.
Right. He's lucky he didn't
Merc has
grab the guy's wife out of the air and throw it back at him.
Yeah, the wife responded to a code phrase like she's a robot or something.
Right, or just, that was because the president then goes on to say, how disappointed he was, all the training he spent on her, to get her to, protect him, presumably was a
mean, it's a little confused because it's like, on the one hand, they're talking about their daughter, so it's this real couple, but on the other hand, he's trained her to be like the Manchurian candidate.
Yeah.
When I say the code phrase, you kill everyone in the room. Anyway,
So we don't feel bad about this guy dying.
yeah, we sort of move on, but like the daughter has already awoke and she'll be our focus for a while.
Yeah, for quite a while. Right. So Merc confronts the daughter, with the tip of the dagger sticking through the other side of the wall and some blood leaking out. Uh, but
I
yeah,
just noticed his corpse hanging on the wall there, and
yeah, in shadow. It's a good,
yeah.
good little details though, right? It's well done. You got full backgrounds. Uh, Mark says, "Cute kid. Too bad she's an orphan." I like that line. And so here's feet. Soldiers must be coming, and this is kind of the wackiest scene, I think, where the soldiers confront him, and he says, "The president's dead." Which is obvious because he's pinned to the door. Actually, yeah, it looks like a door. He's swinging around on the door, pierced through the chest. And the goons, the underlings of the president, then decide they're going to fight over who's the new president. And just instead of stopping Merc, they just start shooting each other conveniently. So, weird country, and judging from the noise outside, word has spread and elections, in quotes, are being held. So you get a lot of, no, me, I'm president, I'm in charge. So apparently the whole army is just shooting at each other at this point. Last
Dissolves immediately to chaos. Yeah.
Yes. So at this point, Merc is happy for the distraction. The soldiers are killing each other. The daughter is starting to realize how traumatized she is. Papa, Mama, please help me. The shooting gets stopped. And then when the last 5 soldiers declare they're the new coalition government, you get a nice kaboom, and Maul has blown them all up and is laughing at them. The government soldiers are so bloody stupid. They were dancing on my charges. So it's a weird scene at the end there. But ultimately that's it for the government. Then we cut to the next with the rebel who hired them.
Moving right along.
We are. Lots of action to start. So, we get to know the rebel leader. He doesn't look very pleasant either. He's got a sinister looking mustache and a beret, and he's sitting at the president's desk, perhaps, and looking at the ring that they were talking about having stolen from the rebels, and now it's back with him. But yeah, we don't become too impressed with him. He's like, maybe we'll hold elections once things are stabilized, or my people are too stupid to manage themselves, and so Merc is starting to feel like he just swapped dictators, but he's ready to just get the heck out of there.
Yeah, I mean it's not an advancement, but you also get a sense of these people aren't that great either, so
right,
it's not a real loss. So yeah, he's just okay. Let's just get my payment and get out of it.
Bottom of page 9, I do really like the derpy looking soldier out there. Maybe just a little art error, but he looks kind of cross-eyed with a gap tooth. But
gap-toothed hick. That's
yeah, pretty much.
Every country has them, I guess.
The gap tooth is the giveaway, I suppose. Sorry. But yeah, so him and another goon are flipping a coin to see who gets to have unfriendly relations with the captured daughter. And as our tough good guy with some sort of moral code, you gotta just assume he's not gonna stand for that. So him and Maul threaten the 2 hapless goons, and say no, that's on us. So they go into the room. The daughter's, of course, none too pleased to be found by, even rescued by, the guys who just murdered her parents. So that's a nice bit, though, that she's not just like saying, "Oh, yay, thank you, you rescued me." They have to tie her up and haul her and carry her around. She's not going without a struggle.
Yeah, she does not settle down at any point after this.
No, she's unhappy. Also, as opposite of Kickers Inc., drawn in really risque poses and clothing, with not a lot going on as she's running through.
She's in this lingerie she was introduced in. She's stays in throughout the issue. It's good figure work. It's a little risque, but I mean, it's not over the top, and all the figures are pretty realistic, so it's
Yeah.
not.
It's not the
mean-
weird superheroes with body paint kind of thing. It does look like real people. Yeah, our Merc and Maul are now escaping. Mark Hazzard and Merc has decided to, rescue the girl, even though she doesn't want him to. We learned that Maul is from New Zealand, so we get a little bit from him. And, he's also pretty frustrated with his boss slash buddy because they didn't get paid for this job now, because now they're fighting the rebels and fleeing from them. Right, so we flip. Maul is working on traps. Has kind of a neat little rigged up device with a shotgun shell with a nail that kind of acts like a landmine. And when they step on it, in a amazing bit of luck, I suppose, ends up blasting a lot of the pursuers. So
Yeah, I think these are a lot of before we had IEDs from in the Middle East, we had all these sort of things in Vietnam with punji sticks or the
yeah.
sharpened sticks at the bottom of a pit. I remember.
Did you know that, or did you have to look that up too?
I knew that,
You did?
although it may have also been in World War II Japanese, now that I think about it. But that's the
Yeah,
I remember the name from wherever it is.
okay. Yeah, I looked that one up. I was curious. But yeah, a lot of those little details that, they're not just running and magically exploding or like lobbing grenades around. So I thought that was kind of nice. But yeah, that's basically the classic pit trap of dig a hole, cover it, and put little wooden spikes on the bottom. So not guys to mess with. So as we escape, and Mark Hazzard is trying to convince the daughter, who I don't think we ever get her name, that
Maria,
oh, is it? Okay, thank you.
I
Trying
think
to
in the
convince her
beginning.
that she should go with them, and that's her safest bet. Then we start to get flashbacks of Mark Hazzard and his parents, right?
They are
So you
they are
like,
not much nicer than Mark.
no. He goes, so Mark says, I feel sorry for you. Your parents must have kept you under lock and key. And she says, and yours must have kept you under a rock, right? So that's our transition to the flashback scene, where his dad's being a jerk, and he's mad because Mark Hazzard has decided to leave West Point and not try and be high up in the army or an officer, and he wants to go enlist and just fight in Vietnam.
They kept him under a rock. The rock was called their expectations of him.
Yes. Boom.
Yeah, West Point family, military tradition, blah, blah, blah. But instead, Mark's got other plans.
Nope. Yep, he just wants to be constantly battling, right? So it's actually kind of a callback to the beginning, where he's ignoring his family and his dating life, and or his former family and his dating life, and what he really wants to hear from is the next job. Yeah. So we're still in pursuit, though, right? So at this point, they're trying to escape. We get introduced to Treetop, which is the pilot of the group. So I guess somebody had to have been flying the helicopter that they jumped out of in the beginning of the mission, and that's Treetop. So he's hanging out, perhaps surprised when a classic World War II looking Jeep filled with rebels with rocket launchers starts streaking towards them. But
yeah, he doesn't hear. They don't have my communications devices, I guess, because this is the first he's heard of. That there's a problem. Is these guys in a Jeep shooting at him?
I like to
He's
think
got pretty good reflexes, I guess.
Yeah, I like to think that they did have communications devices. They just didn't bother to tell Treetop. Yeah, he'll be all right.
It's the same as ever.
Yeah. So and it is kind of that. It's, oh geez, what's Mark gotten into this time? Better nail the guy with the rocket launcher first, right? So it's pretty casual. He does. A nice other bit of sort of action realism. They shoot the gas tank. The gas tank doesn't explode, but just leaks, and then he hits it with a flare gun, right? Which would actually ignite the fuel. probably still wouldn't explode. It probably would just light on fire. But it's a little better. So I
A
appreciate
little
it.
better. I guess that's Mal is coming.
Yeah. So
So he was too late to get there before the soldiers, but they're all getting together now. I guess.
yeah, so everyone's converging. The rebels are coming to the helicopter site. Mark Hazzard and Mal have made it back with the girl Maria. She's of course totally freaked out, and get a little bit more flashback. So we get our first Vietnam flashback from Mark Hazzard here. And, this is, I'm not like you. I'm not a warmongering American. And it says, "See, kid, you don't know what you're missing." So a lot of good one-liners out of Mark Hazzard, I think. So a barrage of images flash through his mind. He's up to his knees in mud, slogging through his 3 tours of Vietnam. Right, so he just kept going back. He can't get enough of the action. She says, "Why are you doing this to me? Especially when I would kill you." Right? And he figures she's his responsibility. Another flashback to Mark and his mother, who's now older. He's got some of his scars now, and father's dead. She said, "Tell Mark to follow in my footsteps. Tell him to be a good soldier." He says, "It's a shame I wasn't there, because I would have said when he had that heart attack, 'Dad, the soldier's cutting himself new orders.'" You can't.
This is after 3 tours of Vietnam. I don't know. Is a tour 2 years or 4 years?
I don't know. It would have been a good bit of research to have. But yeah. So here's one more order. "Get out of my house, you ungrateful snot."
The meanest mother I may have seen in any comic book, to be honest.
Yeah. So at this point in the action scenes, there's been a lot of shooting. The rebels are in between Mark and Maria and the helicopter. Things are getting kind of tense. There's only so many rocket launchers that the helicopter can just dodge, even with our ace pilot Treetop.
So the helicopter's up in the air.
Yep.
The guys, they're shooting at it. So
Yep. So explosions, bullets. Maria breaks away. She's had it. She's tired of being carried around. His team's had it. They're tired of him. Holding out, trying to save this girl that doesn't want to be saved. It's slowing them down. It's putting them at risk. They're covering his ass. Over and over again. I don't want to get blown up. It's too bloody ironic. So it's Mal, our explosion.
Mal's got a lot of good lines, I gotta say.
Yeah, he's a good character. Kind of a classic bearded guy with a headband who likes exploding things. So we can't wait for you to drag her here. We'll be shot down. And so then she finally kind of gives up, lets her go, hops on the helicopter. She's running away, but he still kind of wants to save her, but she gets gunned down by the rebels, who really have no interest in rescuing her themselves. So
yeah, that was a little darker turn there than I expected, even when I first read this. It was like,
yeah.
Yikes. I mean, well, let's just keep going.
Yeah. So after a few parting shots, the helicopter mows down a few more rebels. Our heroes escape. They don't rescue the girl, so she's not saved. So we are saved from that cliche, I guess. And a lot of people are dead, and nobody in particular is happy.
And I don't think he got paid either.
Yeah, nobody got paid, so they're mad at Mark Hazzard for that. Mal is threatening to go. They mentioned that their next job they're supposed to go straight to was in Libya, but Mark Hazzard, perhaps having experienced some time with someone's kid, decides he does in fact want to go to that baseball game for his son. So that kind of surprises everyone. And it sounds like Mal is ready to quit. He's unhappy. Our employers will get somebody else. Blast it, Mark. You're taking money out of our pockets. And he's like, it's too bad. But they're all frustrated. They're not sure if the team is going to stay together or not. Treetop doesn't care as much. He seems to be willing to just kind of roll with the punches, even though he admits that Mark Hazzard is bad for business, right? So we get a lot of conversation as they're heading out in the helicopter.
I mean, so by the way, the helicopter, I when I thought about it, is actually a little strange in the sense that I don't think you can go from, across countries. Like you couldn't go from outside the Philippines into the Philippines with just
Right.
one helicopter.
So,
So
well, there's some sort of employer, right? So whether that's shadow ops from the government, so he may have been like flown to a site somewhere nearby and provided with a helicopter. We don't really know. So yeah, at this point, we don't know what his backing is, or exactly just that he's a mercenary for hire. Whether that's only from the United States or well, clearly not in this case because he's been hired by rebels to off somebody. But yeah, we don't quite know what his backing is or how people get in touch with him to hire him.
yeah, I think So Treetop seems to be the also setting up the deals. So he says, I just answer the phone. So
Okay.
maybe, well, maybe he also gets called from the guy who sets it up. Okay, we'll just,
we'll see.
We'll figure out the details of how that works later.
Right. Or issue 2, he opens up a bakery. We don't know. Could happen. Right. So the next day, so we're nearing the end of the story, and so we cut to what we find out is Mark Hazzard's former wife and his son. We're in the living room of their home. She's knitting. Kid answers the phone, and he's really surprised to learn that his dad actually called him. So the kid's a little lacking in the love department, and sounds like he hasn't talked to him in a long time. But he gives him the details of the baseball game, and it sounds like he's coming. And of course, the kid's excited. So isn't that great? And the wife kind of pretends to be happy and like, oh, that's great, Scott. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure there when you said you knew he wouldn't, right? So of course nobody was expecting to show up. It's a big surprise. And then good move, Mark. I'm happily remarried for 2 years now. Scott was finally beginning to accept my new husband as a positive role model, right? So it's kind of, he's coming back into the scene, maybe driving a wedge between the son and the new husband. So she says, you picked a real rotten time to stop disappointing people. And that's sort of where we end.
And it's just end.
Yeah, no clues of the next, no title, no battle in the Rose Garden, no next mission. Maybe
22 pages.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a very different story in tone. There's a lot of action. There's really action the whole way through, to the point where they would squeeze in family flashbacks and character building kind of as they went. A few panels in a page here and there. But yeah, it was a pretty fun ride.
I'm exhausted just going through it.
Yeah, there's a lot there. It's almost hard to detail because while there's a lot of action scenes and there's also a lot of conversation during the action scenes and a lot of setup too. But we got to know our characters. It'll be interesting to see if these are recurring mercenary buddies or if they kind of go sour and we get new characters. And of course, it's kind of set up in the end for issue 2 to find out what happens with the wife and kid. But yeah, it was pretty interesting. It's there was a lot of little war details. The art was good. There's a little bit of slapstick in there almost with the government officials fighting over who was going to be the next president, or basically the soldiers shooting for
little Keystone Cops kind of stuff.
No particularly great reason.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna start over again. So
Yeah.
Gramercy Park, this neighborhood in Manhattan, I had to like double check that. 'Cause I had thought like sort of more like a Brooklyn kind of place, but it's this very nice, residential area that's kind of in lower Manhattan, sort of like where NYU is towards the village, but it's
Okay.
I'm sure like even then it was probably expensive. I assume now it would be astronomical.
Yeah. We probably wouldn't see Mark Hazzard at the New York Smashers game, but maybe his wife and kid and the new husband could have been at the New York Smashers game.
There you
That would have been a good
That's
tie-in.
That's right. Yeah. Early Marvel was all centered in New York City. And the new universe was really a chance to kind of get outside that. I think several of the books took that. But yeah, the having 2 or 3 still in the New York area, but not ever running into each other.
Right.
Again, missed opportunity. Although, as you can see, the tonal shift would be so much that
Yeah.
it would,
Yeah. I remember really it's like, the Saturday morning, Mr. T comic or cartoon compared to like Rambo,
yeah.
More like the first Rambo movie where it's still a little more serious, but
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely takes that sort of I don't know, that Stallone Schwarzenegger kind of role of the very beefed up, very action oriented military type guy.
yeah, they definitely set him up, to be a little different, kind of highlighting, he's well read in the art of military everything kind of deal. So there's a little bit more of like a smarter, cultured, wealthy family. He's not just kind of like a ruffian, but obviously has some kind of unnatural taste for all things combat. He just only wants to fight, right?
Yeah, it's I mean, there's been I don't know, the Punisher. There's been a few things that are close to this,
Yeah.
but I mean, sometimes they're like the immortal soldier or something, like a guy who can't die, and so he becomes this like god of war who's always looking for a new fight for some reason.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, it's not quite Haunted Tank.
nice. So let's see. I mean, I thought about going back and doing a body count on this one.
Oh yeah.
It's I mean,
We
it's up
should
there with
we should go back and do that, and then we'll start the number the next time we cover an issue. That's a great idea.
this may be, yeah. I mean, all the books had a person die, but it was
Do we count all deaths or all deaths from Merc?
yeah,
Might be hard to figure out who he's killed at every time. So maybe just all deaths.
yeah, let's go with all deaths. It'll be up there.
Yes.
The probably Malcolm is
Oh, right. Yeah, I wasn't sure on that one.
I have a I still don't like hear like a New Zealand accent. I mean, they don't
No.
sort of make it sound look any different, but yeah, it's
Yeah,
good.
and so we learned that from a fun scene where, he's talking to the rescued daughter Maria, and it's like, how many Americans have you met? She's like, well, 2. And he's like, well, Mal's New Zealand, right? He's from New Zealand. It's like, okay, 1.
There's good sort of dialogue with the daughter. You can almost believe is like a high school, college age, like liberal,
Right.
American of the time of like, well, all this warmongering Americans, here we go. Oh, are you going to kill us too and subjugate the third world? And way to, so it's an interesting like post-Vietnam kind of attitude you haven't seen for a while. After that, it was like there's a long dry spell of not no like full military action, and we were kind of had this cloud of losing over our heads. So
Yeah, a lot of the action movies in the 80s, it was kind of split between like, run and gun, goofy, like unrealistic guy against the world kind of stuff. And then like the ones that, maybe tried to take the Vietnam War a little more seriously and kind of, show the horrible effects on the soldiers and some of the things they had to go through kind of thing. Not quite to full metal jacket level things later on, but I think there's sort of a good combination of pieces there. The one thing I thought was interesting, and it's not quite of the comic itself, but in the 2 bullpen bulletins where they have the descriptions of the different New Universe titles, in Night Mask, they say that our Night Mask, Keith Remsen and his sister Teddy, together they run a unique psychoanalytical consulting service. Right, so we didn't get that in the first issue, but so they're kind of giving a clue to what the story might be about, unless they got that wrong and then they just totally forget that idea.
I think it may be a couple of inconsistencies in here, like the Max armor had the wrong name or something when they talked about
right. MACS versus MAX and things, yeah,
something like that, yeah. But when they told them you're gonna have to get a job and do something with this power, I guess that's what the initial plan was. We'll see how long they stick with that.
Yeah, I think and Merc in general, just compared to everything else, didn't really feel like a new universe title. Like it could be anything. It's just kind of a good war book, which put me off at first, but then I kind of appreciated that. It's because again, they're going for this sort of realistic world. Not every book has to have something to do with the White event, and Merc didn't have to have supernatural powers given to him, or as part of the conflict. They just like, hey, let's make a war book, and all right, they did it.
I really appreciate genre diversity. I mean, I always kind of wished we had more, a war book, a Western book, I don't know, a humor or romance, something.
Yeah, mystery kind of.
Yeah, crime became a thing a while ago, so that actually did go, take off. People were doing more of that. But yeah, it's it could be in any comic book universe, just sort of around the corner. Could be in our universe. It's very more slice of life, I guess, than any of the other books.
Right.
I think like in one of the Shooter's editorials, you were saying something about like the design of the new universe. Well, we want to be more realistic, but we still want superheroes. We're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
So you're sort of walking a line here between, okay, people have powers, but the costumes aren't really that realistic unless everyone else is already doing it. You probably wouldn't think, oh, I'll throw this on. And
right.
Went around the neighborhood, but anyway.
Yeah. So what would you rate?
I mean,
are you
the sort of downer ending of particularly killing the girl? I mean, if you had literally killed every soldier on that island and taken the girl out, you'd think, well, happy ending.
Only one life has value.
Terrible, but she goes down as she died as she lived, yelling about how she hates Americans.
She was the only one on that island that we saw that wasn't trying to kill somebody.
And like I said, the figure work, everyone is realistically proportioned and looks appropriately masculine or feminine and all this sort of thing. So
yep.
And you get a good sort of introduction to this character.
This issue has me looking forward to reading more issues.
It's a good grabber. I'm kind of already thinking, let's not spend too much time on the family, because
I know, yeah.
I think in this bulletin, it's like cost him his wife, his son, his parents. Yeah. Other Mercs are Mark's only family now. So you're like, is he going to spend like, half his time trying to prove himself to his son?
Right. Misadventures while he's doing babysitting. Like, can you just watch the kid? And it's like, but I got all my guns.
So, but yeah, overall, this is perhaps my favorite of the. I'm not saying war is really my favorite comic book genre, but it's done so rarely now that I really appreciate a solid effort in that direction. So,
All right.
so for me, I don't know, like A-.
I was thinking A- as well. I think that's the same score I gave Star Brand, which was my favorite heading into it.
It's comparable, yeah.
Yeah.
They're, if you were to like launch, well, we've got a couple of good ones next week, but
absolutely.
So let me see. Yeah, there was I think the early 80s, war comics had like really gone down to like Sergeant Rock at DC, and maybe G.I. Joe would be covered by that.
Yeah.
Level. And
but G.I. Joe's, I don't know if that's even a war comic.
It's
as
sort
soldiers.
Of gray zone, but where you've got enough fantastic elements that it fits more into this Marvel universe, even if it's sort of off on its own.
Yeah, the rebels. If the rebels were wearing blue and driving a snake-themed tank, then
I think Marvel. I forget if they had been publishing the Nom, the comic book, by then.
I think that came later, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, is it in the list? I'll have to double check. I don't see it in 2 seconds.
Doesn't look like it.
No. So,
I think that was early 90s. Maybe later 80s or early 90s.
Yeah, maybe earlier 80s then. Sort of remember it.
No, they were 10 issues into Muppet Babies at the time.
So you see how many comics Marvel was putting out at this time. It's quite impressive.
And they didn't shorten it.
Epic, half a dozen in each of those. Epic had half a dozen, where Archie Goodwin was editing, and ditto for Star Comics, the juvenile line with Ewoks, Heathcliff, and Muppet Babies. You can see the problem there.
Yeah, a lot of books.
Yeah. I tried dividing these up at one point into, Transformers is in the main line, but that would have been on its own universe as well. You could take out like a number of things that were licensed. Conan maybe had about 4 or 5 titles all by himself.
Yeah, though to be fair, even like Spider-Man shows up in Transformers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought Transformers and G.I. Joe would have been sort of their own individual universes.
That would make more sense, probably.
Well,
they just really wanted to have Spider-Man in it.
Let's see. So any other comments before we go?
Well, what do we got next? Next we have Justice and DP7. And that's our last of the issue 1s, right?
Yeah, that'll wrap up the first month of the new universe. So looking forward to those. I liked both of those series. So although I didn't get DP7 in when it started, so I sort of rolled into it after half the series got canceled.
Okay.
As I recall.
So far, so good. I've been enjoying the new universe.
Good. I think I've been having more fun than I expected, honestly.
Yeah.
I like that style of the time, I guess.
Well, thanks for listening, and we'll wrap this one up for today.